Wolfe describes his figure drawings as expressionistic. While he uses charcoal and pencils to plan a work, he uses oils exclusively in his painting. Wolfe's approach to his art is disciplined and thoughtful.
I start with just really little scribbles uh, of a general idea. I usually get like a subject in mind, and what it really is it's a matter again of having some kind of limitations, like setting yourself a problem, and while you work the subject matter and the limitations, you're at the same time trying to find sort of like what you might call an eloquent solution. You're trying to find some kind of a simplicity that stands behind the complexity, or you're trying to base the complexity on a simple scheme of some type. Like with the human body, you might say as an example, like with the human body, no matter how complicated its movement might be, there's always like a simple line that runs through it, a simple curve, or a simple curve with maybe one or two straight lines attached to it. It's that kind of a thing, like where when you look at something, it looks terribly complex, but it's really based on a very simple principle, a curve, a rectangle, a triangle, or some group of simple shapes like that. So it's a dual process of trying to get the subject matter and the working on the problem that you've set yourself, and at the same time trying to come to some kind of an eloquent, simple solution.
John Wolfe does a lot of what he calls third world paintings. Despite his middle class upbringing, he sees himself as out of mainstream society, and he relates to what he calls exotic places and people. He also considers himself one of the few people who believed in the Vietnam War. Wolfe says he's convinced there were many Vietnams. Popular movies such as Full Metal Jacket and Platoon, and accounts of atrocities perpetrated by American military personnel do not represent his Vietnam experience. However, perhaps one of Wolfe's most haunting paintings was inspired by an atypical experience for him in Vietnam.
I did do a one painting that's coming out in a book being published by Chronicle Books in San Francisco. It's called Incident at Phu Loc. It was an image when we were ambushing the Viet Cong down in this little village. We killed what we used to do is we'd go out at night in small bands and ambush the Viet Cong, and once in a while there would be a woman amongst them. You know, they were all armed and everything, and in the dark you can't tell, you know, who it is out in front of you. And there was a curfew, so you knew that anybody who was out there was a bad guy, so to speak. And this one night it was raining, and this one group of Viet Cong had terrible luck that we heard one ambush that we had set up down the other side of the village. They hit that, and some of them were killed, and then they hit like another one somewhere in the village, and then they came in front of our position. We opened up on them. They were running across like this open rice paddy, and we hit 3 or 4. And then what we were supposed to do is we just would pull the bodies into a pile. We were working off of like a bridge. You know, the command post was like at a bridge on what they called Highway 1, which was really a dirt road. But as soon as they heard contact, they would start firing flare mortars, and they would like whoop, whoop, whoop down with like a flare on a parachute and light up the area. So they would light up the sky, and then after the ambush, we would just drag the bodies into a pile. And then in the morning, the indigenous soldiers that were in the village, they were like National Guard, we called them rough puffs. They would come out and they would take the bodies to the dirt road called Highway 1 they would tie them on bamboo poles and like a deer, and they would carry them out to the road, the bodies. And this one particular morning following this ambush, we had pulled, there was a couple female bodies and a couple males, and we pulled their bodies into a pile and left them till morning. And then when the indigenous troops arrived in the morning, we went off into the village somewhere to make coffee or something. And on the way back, this little procession of Buddhist priests, there were like 3 or 4 of them that came marching up the road, and our interpreter who was with us told us that They wanted us to follow them over to the bodies, and we went over there, and I don't know, the indigenous soldiers had molested one of the female bodies.
John Wolfe has had several exhibits of his paintings around the New York City area and Woodstock. Some have been sold, although he doesn't consider himself a good business person.
I'm the world's worst businessman. I've had a lot of trouble, well, not actually trouble getting into galleries because I never really made too much of an attempt. I made the terrible miscalculation of thinking that all you had to do was get good and then you'd find an outlet with no problem. And actually just the reverse is true. You can make total garbage, and if you're out there hustling, you can, get tons of shows and all kinds of credentials and everything.
Wolfe's main support as a wounded veteran comes from what he considers a generous income from the government. However, he feels no one but other veterans are capable of understanding what he went through in Vietnam.
I'm of the opinion that modern psychology is totally inadequate and totally unequipped to deal with people who have any kind of emotional duress that's due to a war. I think that from my own personal experience, there's a whole psychological landscape that psychologists don't even suspect is there, and that until they can make some kind of an intelligent study of the kind of transformative experience that war is on people's mentality, that they are just they're wasting their time and the time of people that they're trying to help. Fortunately, I think when you're at war, you develop, to survive, you in a sense come to the point where you have to find a place within yourself where you are just not accessible to all the pain. You have to find a place where you're inaccessible.
From his Catholic upbringing in the Lower East Side of New York City, through the jungles of Vietnam, to his family and work in the Hudson Valley, John Wolfe finds his life has been harmonious.
The art thing, it's not something I really do. It's just the part of me that is mostly me. It's my way of living. Actually, it's the way I make sense out of my life, and it's the way I experience life. It's the way I articulate my life to myself.
John Wolfe almost did not survive the Vietnam War, a war he came to believe in, but he lived to both raise a family and to share his life through his paintings. His story is one of many who shared the Vietnam experience.